Our second topic is organization. Back then, you had what I'll call aping. The idea or misconception, as it were, that a small company could become a big company by aping a big company's habits and personnel. This is, of course, it turned out to be a hugely misguided and destructive misperception. The modern alternative is customer development, which was introduced by a gentleman named Steve Blank in his book, Four Steps to the Epiphany. So, the most important concept, I think, in Four Steps to the Epiphany and the idea of customer development is that a startup, meaning any entity that's not in an established business, is emphatically not the same thing as a big company. And when you're a startup, you need to organize and focus in fundamentally different ways. The red notation you see up there means not equal to. So a startup is not equal to a large established organization. As an example of where this misperception comes into play, let's say a VC and or set of founders bring in a VP of sales from an established company. And the idea is that this person is going to go out and close big deals because that's what they've done historically. But actually, he or she is used to doing that against an established proposition in an established market. So the whole thing with the VP of sales from a large company in this startup starts to unravel. And the most important point of view about customer development in this regard is that when you're still learning about your proposition and your business model, those kind of hires are a huge waste of treasure. Instead, what you need to put together is a customer development team. This is a team with various talents depending on what you need, but it's very flat and it's 100% focused on validating the business's key assumptions. The customer development team does this through hands-on validated learning, meaning that they're sitting with customers, developing personas, the kind of things we talked about, testing mock-ups and prototypes with customers, putting things online and seeing if anybody signs up. And we actually do this inside Lean at both of these things. We have established products where we use a relatively traditional departmental model. Sales sells stuff, development builds stuff, operations maintain stuff. But for our new products, where we're still tuning our product market fit, we have a customer development team, which is a mix of consulting engineers, developers, operations, working together in a very fluid fashion with less defined process. I've run into the misperception that according to customer development, large organizations and defined processes are just plain bad. But they're not, and that's in fact not what Steve Blank's work says. Big organizations that have multiple departments and processes, they're scalable, they work well, and they can even be highly creative. Plenty of companies go sideways because they don't build good, scalable organizations after they do validate product market fit, and then they can't scale. So the proposition of customer development is that until you have a validated product market fit, throwing a lot of money at a traditional organization is misguided and wasteful. And you should save your money for pivots, which is an idea that we'll talk about in the next few minutes. So here we see a series of events from a company's founding to its first board meeting. The founders have an awesome idea, which is a great start. They want to go raise venture capital. So they put together a 5-year plan that shows the VCs a 10x return. This is a big problem because at this stage you have better odds of winning the lottery than being right about a 5-year plan. And that's even if your idea is really solid. So let's say there's a Hail Mary that completes and the VCs are ready to put some serious capital into work. These guys are in a hot space. The VC wants to put a lot of capital to work, and the VC brings in a menagerie of senior executives from big companies and professionals like lawyers and accountants that service big companies. And this is a big problem because these hires, as we talked about, may not necessarily have the right skill sets for validating this product market fit, for doing this hands-on work. Big company experience is not necessarily equal to small company experience. So the new hires come in from these established companies with their track records, and they go and they put their established recipes about how they did things at these large established companies to work, and problematic because these folks may very well lack the experience and the kind of hands-on discovery and management of uncertainty that is part of being at a startup. and the expanded team is working like crazy to conform to the 5-year plan, but it's not working because having a 5-year plan that you created so early in the game before you find a product market fit, it's almost impossible. You have better odds of going down to the local 7-Eleven and buying scratch tickets. And this plan may not even turn out to be the right thing. So now they've got to go and talk to the board. All sorts of theories are concocted about why things aren't quite lining up with the 5-year plan, and there's lots of revisions. The board gets nervous, and you can kind of get a sense of where this goes. It's not fun for anybody, and it's not very profitable a lot of the time. I picked an example with a startup company and VCs, but very similar things happen at various scales with internal projects, for instance, at established companies. Companies have budget cycles, management priorities, things that drive them towards scale and predictable plans, which are sometimes a bad fit if you're working to figure out something on a project that's truly novel and you really don't know yet if and how it's going to make sense. Let's take a look at this with customer development. The founders get an awesome new idea. What they immediately do is lay out all the key assumptions that they need to validate to make a business out of this new idea. And they spend their time doing hands-on validation of the key assumptions that they've put together. This focus will reduce the amount of capital they need because they've recognized that what they need to do is focus on validating the product market fit, not building a big company. And as they do this, they're going to be continually lowering the risk profile of the company very, very quickly relative to the example we had before. So they may or may not need to go to investors or advisors and get additional capital. They may be able to bootstrap it. They may be able to go to friends and family and get a little money. At Leonid, for example, we started out doing a lot of consulting, which pays regularly, and that's how we financed our software business. And 5 years later, we still don't have a VC investment. We haven't really needed one. So the good thing about this approach is that it's going to lower their capital requirements and open up the possibility for non-traditional funding strategies, which gives them more flexibility and a better chance of getting off the ground. They may or may not bring additional resources in. If they do, those people are going to be doing things like sitting with customers, building prototypes, building early articles of the product, and putting things online and seeing what happens. And that's great because it gives you clear, immediate priorities to focus your hiring and recruitment. And what these new hires are going to be focused on, along with the founding team, you've got roles and success criteria that are very clear. And that's hugely, hugely helpful in a startup because in managing a startup, you've got this difficult pairing of uncertainty and urgency. So these new hires are out focused on validating the key assumptions that the founders have identified. The expanded team is working towards a pivot or persevere moment where they're going to figure out whether they're on the right track or not. And they sit down with the board. Now, this board may just be the founders themselves, and they've got a set of data that they've collected against these assumptions that allows them to either say, yes, we have a business here, there's a product market fit, or no, this isn't working, we either need to come up with a new idea or go do something else. And everyone at this point that gets to decide whether it's really working or not based on some empirical information that they've been collecting, and that's more fun. You're going out, you're learning things. Everybody knows and recognizes the uncertainty that's inherent in the business, but they have a coherent framework to work towards its resolution.